Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. The current Warzone meta has some pretty interesting options if you are just focused on going after the absolute fastest time to kill that a weapon can offer. Now, oftentimes TTK does not necessarily mean meta. Keep in mind, just because a weapon has a super fast TTK doesn't mean it's also super good for mobility or super good for handling or super good for control or whatever else. It just simply has a fast TTK when you are landing shots consistently on enemies. So within this, we've got some high skill gap weapons, we've got some more average or low skill gap weapons, really a solid mix of setups that offer some pretty fast knocks if you are accurate with these guns. And we're starting first with a very fun one, the somewhat new aftermarket part for the RAL LMG known as the JAK Proteon, or the Protein, right? This is best in semi-auto mode. It's very DMR-like, if you will. I do have the exact TTK stats for all these weapons that we're breaking down here today, courtesy of True Game Data. And at about 49 meters, so prime like late mid-range, early long range, this thing is a 758 millisecond TTK, which is largely faster than the vast majority of options in this game, whether it be full auto or semi-auto at that range, while also being relatively easy to use in semi-auto as well. It doesn't have crazy gun kick. You can actually spam it pretty quickly, so it's pretty forgiving despite the fact that usually semi-auto weapons are a bit higher skill gap. It still is because it's semi-auto and that's the best version of it, but definitely easier than some other choices, even easier than some other choices that we have on the list. Bit of foreshadowing there. But as far as this overall setup goes, obviously you want the Proteon kit on there. Now the key, like I said, is to use this in semi-auto. The full auto version of this just is not really that great. I do go for the 50 round belt mag just because it's going to speed it up, and let's face it, in semi-auto 50 rounds is just fine. You're not gonna burn through ammo at insane rates like you would in full auto, for instance. I do go for the quartermaster suppressor just to keep things super easy when you are spamming. It's got great control on there, plus you're kind of limited in your attachments. No underbarrel, no barrel here. You don't need a laser for a mid to long range gun. The ammo options are not really great here. You're gonna end up hurting your range if you want any better velocity, since of course there's no high grain or anything like that, and rear grips, as we know, just really aren't all that great. So instead I opt for the 2.5 times Eagle Eye optic here. If there's a different optic you're more comfortable with, specifically for semi-auto guns or just in general, really always run that. I like the 2.5. Then lastly, I go for the H40 stock. This just helps out a little bit with control. Nothing too crazy there, but quite frankly, a lot of the stocks suck because this is an MW2 gun at the end of the day. But for damage, purely as like the main driving factor here, the amp for the RAL goes crazy with that TTK. Next up, we've got a much easier weapon to use, far more forgiving, maybe the easiest on this list if I'm being honest, and this is the TAC Eradicator. Now, bit of a warning here, the TTK with this gun is tricky because it does vary so much depending on your accuracy. This is a big one where if you hit the vast majority of your shots, it's gonna have a fast TTK. If you start missing shots in there, it's gonna get all mixed up and drop off pretty quickly because the fire rate does slow down the more you're shooting it. It starts off really fast and then slows down decently quickly. So if you can land shots right off the rip, the fastest TTK there is going to be possible, but if you take longer to get that kill, obviously the TTK is going to dwindle pretty quickly. But for this, at about 57 meters, we're looking at an 815 millisecond TTK, ridiculously fast for a full auto gun, better than the vast majority of full auto options, LMGs, rifles, whatever else in the game at the moment. I also particularly like the iron sights on the Eradicator, so I personally go for an iron sight build. I will mention the alternative here, but the 4 standard attachments you want to be running here, high grain in my opinion, absolutely better range, better velocity. This coupled with the 70 long barrel is going to give you a 1250 velo. That's phenomenal for a hit scan range, going to make staying accurate a lot easier with this thing. 56 meter effective damage range is crazy good as well. And then I focus on accuracy with the quartermaster suppressor, obviously going straight up for control, and then also the paracord underbarrel, which is better aiming idle sway, of course, than horizontal control, but it also keeps me a little bit more agile and aggressive as well, which I love that, 2 for 1 there, if you will. And then personally, I like the core stock on here. This is just more control, yet again, keeping the gun super accurate. That said, if you need an optic on this, you don't like the iron sights, I'd recommend dropping the core stock. That's going to be the least valuable, still valuable, but not as much as the others, and throw on your Eagle Eye, throw on your NIDAR, whatever optic you need to run for this that you're comfortable with, and that'd be a good alternative there. So a couple of different ways you can build this thing out. all of them are good. By the way, as we are going through all the setups here today, if you enjoy the video, a like rating is seriously appreciated. It really does help grow the channel. And of course, if you're new here or maybe you have not subscribed yet, this is your one-stop shop for everything going on in Call of Duty on a daily basis. So if you want to guarantee you're up to date with news, updates, patch notes, and of course the best weapons to be using, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. Next up here, we've got a pretty unique build, all things considered, but truly it's the best way in my opinion to capitalize on this weapon's strengths. We've got the Lockman Shroud aftermarket part, which turns it into basically a full auto suppressed MP5, kind of like the MP5 SD or so. And this is a tac stance based build just because the base Lockman Shroud being an MW2 gun, the attachments are abysmal. There really aren't great attachments on this thing unless you cater to tac stance, but tac stance being so laser accurate, you still get away with a crazy fast TTK. At 12 meters in its hit scan range, 600 milliseconds. That's faster than every other SMG basically at that range. It's going to be a great close range option, and because we're focused on tac stance, you end up having good mobility with this too, which is also something a standard build for ADS would suffer with a lot here. So obviously we've got the Jack Decimator kit on there, turning it full auto, changing the damage profile up some. I go for the stockless mod on here. Obviously that's helping out with the tac stance spread and gives you better mobility. That's a win-win for this style of setup. We've got the Dark Star barrel on here, also helps out a ton with tac stance spread. Then I go for the Bruin Bastion angled grip, also better tac stance spread on there as well. Then lastly, 50 round extended mag, very basic all things considered. This is, like I said, super unique because it's specifically based around tac stance, but this is incredibly accurate and will knock out players incredibly quickly when you are running and gunning and gearing towards those ultra close range fights. Next up, we've got one of my personal favorites, and this thing was actually just buffed with the Season 5 Reloaded update, the MCW 6.8. This thing has one of the best velocity stats in the entire game. You could actually kit this fully for hit scan and have a near 2000 velo on this, which is just unheard of for every other gun in the game. I go for a more realistic and optimal build here, but this thing fries for a semi-auto. It's easy to use. You've got good magazine capacity. At 58 meters, we're looking at a 743 millisecond TTK. That's besting other marksmans, full auto guns like rifles and LMGs and battle rifles. This thing goes crazy. Little bit of a higher skill gap again because it is semi-auto, but high risk, high reward in this case for sure. So once more, simply going for that 2.5 times eagle eye optic. Use whatever optic you're the most comfortable with. Super advantageous option here on the MCW 6.8 is this 60 round extended mag. Most other marksmans cap out at like 20, 25, 30, and you burn through that ammo. This thing, you've got plenty of ammo to spray and pray, and it really helps not having to stop and reload and worry about your ammo supply, which obviously is a little bit more limited here. I do go a little crazy with the velocity with the Spire Point rounds. This is a 49% increase. I'm still surprised they haven't adjusted this over the seasons because it's been crazy like this for a while. But with this and then also the Spirit Fire suppressor on there increasing the velocity a bit as well, we are just shy of a 1500 velocity on a very easy to use and applicable setup. It's not, you know, sacrificing realistic usage for just a velocity stat like you would if you were going all in on that. This is the meta build and it has this crazy of a velocity. Like you will hit scan pretty much every single fight you're in with this. Spirit Fire, of course, also helps out with the range and control some. And then I go for the Paracord underbarrel on here. I do like, again, the movement benefits of this offers with strafe and general movement, but also the decent control and then the aiming idle sway as well. That said, Bruin Heavy would be a good option here. The Ripper 56 from MW2 could be viable here as well. You certainly have some underbarrel options that are good for stability, idle sway, good control as well if you want to mess around and really see what works best for you. But yeah, don't sleep on the MCW 6.8. This thing is in one of its best states yet within Warzone 3, and that's saying something because it was already very good beforehand. Hey everyone, quickly want to give a big shout out to my friends over at G Fuel. If you're looking to stay energized or hydrated, look no further than G Fuel. They got a little bit of something for everyone. If you need to focus up and need some extra energy, the cans and the tubs got you covered there. And if you're just looking to stay hydrated, they've got the hydration formula as well. And of course, if you're looking to save some money, because let's be honest, who doesn't want to save a little extra cash, you can throw in code Immortal at checkout and get 20 to 30% off any given item on the site. Obviously, with Black Ops 6 on the horizon, you want to make sure you're stocked up. So if you're looking to grab anything at all from the G Fuel site, check out the link down in the description below. And then lastly, we've got what is, in my opinion, one of the most difficult weapons to use in the game, by far the most difficult and highest skill gap weapon on this particular list, but its TTK is also absolutely absurd. It's the FTAC Recon from MW2. There's cons to this thing. That's why I'm saying it's the highest skill gap, it's the highest risk, highest reward, because at 45 meters, we're looking at a 712 millisecond TTK. That is insanely fast for that range. And then obviously the closer you get, the faster that TTK is going to be, especially like in your hit scan range and whatnot. The drawbacks here though, MW2 gun, so the attachments are brutal, and then also the 15 round extended mag is your max here. And quite frankly, you can shoot this thing decently fast with a 500 RPM cap, and then if you have a good trigger finger, like, you can get shots off very quickly with this thing. You will be reloading a lot. Luckily, this knocks enemies so quick that you'll have time to reload because they'll be downed, they'll be wiped, and you'll be on your merry way off to, take out your next squad. I do use the PSO heavy stock on here. It's not doing much, like just straight up 2% to your control is not a huge deal. That said, the cons, in my opinion, are less severe than something like the, Sakin ZX grip, which is better for control. It's giving you more control properties, but it's hurting your idle sway. We don't want that on semi-auto guns to begin with, and we definitely don't want that on an MW2 semi-auto gun. So this would be an option, but personally, I just don't think the cons are really worth it on a weapon that's already difficult to use. 2.5 times Eagle Eye on there yet again. Don't really need a laser in this case. The ammo options are not good. You're not going to get anything super beneficial. High velocity is going to hurt that range, of course. The barrel options here are unfortunately not that great either. Something like the EXF is going to hurt your idle sway despite extending the range. This is the problem with MW2 attachments. Bull Rider would be maybe okay, but again, hurts your idle sway and it takes away something like Spirit Fire Suppressor. I think this is more valuable. Decent control, some better velo and range. The velo is not really great here, so you do have to be a bit more aggressive with this. Lastly, paracord underbarrel, same deals on the MCW 6.8. If you wanted to use a Ripper underbarrel, that'd be viable. Bruin Heavy's viable. Paracord does speed it up, and I like that, plus offering obviously the decent control and idle sway benefits there. So this is a tricky weapon to use, but if you want to really test yourself, see how good you can do it, that it's by far one of the most rewarding options in the game. That being said though, it's going to wrap things up for this one. Those are the 5 fastest TTK weapons and loadouts for them in Warzone right now. If you enjoyed the video, like rating is always really appreciated, and if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out so you can always guarantee you're up to date with news, updates, patch notes, and meta breakdowns on a daily basis. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.